Hey everyone, in this episode of our first person narrative tutorial, I'm going to cover creating locked doors, adding a player inventory, and then using this system to create keys for our locked doors. So here's a quick outline. First thing on the agenda is going to be to add a lock feature to our existing door script. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Here's the project where we left it. I'm just going to start it and remind myself what we have so far. When you look at the door, it tells you with the display text that you're looking at a door, and then if I click, it opens the door and we get an animation. So that's cool. I think we're going to want to start by opening that script up. So the first thing I want to do is just add a bool to track whether or not this door is locked. So we can make it a private bool. Private bool is locked, and we can leave it false. Now, for the time being, I guess, maybe it makes sense to make this a serialized field because we want the designer to be able to set whether or not the door is locked. And since this is something that the designer is gonna want to understand how it works, I'll go ahead and add a tooltip attribute. So we'll say check this box to lock the door. All right, and let's just save this and see how it looks in the editor, make sure everything's working. I'm going to click on the door, and here we have our door script, and now there's an is locked bool here, so we can check that if we want to lock the door. Okay, so let's go back to our script, and I think a next step is to make this is locked bool actually do a thing. Now, I generally like to separate my editor fields here from just the regular private fields, so I normally put them at the top and then separate them with an empty blank line here. And anyhow, I'm going to check out the interact with method, which this is what's getting called when the player clicks on the door, right? And so it says if the door is not already open, then we'll do the base interact with, which let's just make a comment and say that this plays a sound effect. So you can see, just to verify that this is what's happening in the base interact with. Then we are setting a bool to play the animation, and we're changing the display text to not to empty, so it doesn't show up any longer. And then we're saying, hey, the door's open now, so we'll never do any of this again. So we need to say if the door's not open and it's not locked, do all this stuff. So we can do something like this, and not is locked. Okay, so that way we only do all the open logic if the door is actually unlocked. So we can test that really quickly. I saved. Let's go over to the editor. Let's make sure we check our is locked bool here. So our door should start off locked. I'll walk up to it and click on it, and in theory it will do nothing. So it does nothing, but like if I was just a random player, I'd be like, I guess the game's broke. I'm clicking on this door and nothing's happening. That's not good enough feedback to indicate that it's locked. So let's go ahead and use our feedback mechanisms that we already have in place to help the player understand this is locked. So specifically, we can change the display text, and then we can maybe have a different sound effect for when the door is locked. All right. So starting with the display text, let's start thinking about this. So where's the display text here? The display text is actually in the interactive object, which is the parent class of our door. Okay, so I can see that we're going to need to essentially overwrite this, basically override this property in order to have it show me something different based on whether the door is locked or unlocked. So remember, we can't override this one, a field, but we can override a property like this. And so if I want to override this, I have to mark it as virtual. So public virtual string display text. And you can see that this property is just feeding me back the serialized field here for now. But now in our door, we're going to actually do something a little bit different. So normally we are going to deal with properties after the serialized fields, but before the private fields. So we'll have public override display text, and we'll just change what it's doing here. So we want it to do one of two things. We want to do this, just the regular old behavior, if the door is unlocked. But if the door is locked, we want to say something else. Actually, before we do that, why don't we just make a serialized field for what the door will say when it's locked. So I'm going to make that real quick. In fact, I'll just copy all this stuff and turn it into what I want it to be. So this will be a string, and we'll call it locked display text. And let's see, what should it say by default? Maybe we'll just have it say locked by default. So, and we should change the tooltip. We will make it say the text that displays when the player looks at the door while it's locked. Okay, it seems clear enough to me. But we have to make sure we adjust this logic so that it actually uses this locked display text when the door is locked. So there's one way we could do that with if statements. We could say something like if is locked, and then do something like that. But I actually want to take this as an opportunity to show a different C# operator that you may not have seen, or you may have seen and not understood. And you can find that in the notes here. It's called the conditional operator, or you may see it called the ternary operator. And so if you want a quick intro to this, you can click these. Here's the Microsoft documentation. This is a Unity tutorial about it. Otherwise, I'm just going to jump straight into using it. And essentially, if you want a value to change based on whether, let me rephrase that. If you want a value to be set equal to one of two choices, depending on a condition, that's when you use the conditional operator. So the way you do it, the syntax for it is kind of weird. And so I don't normally find myself using it all the time just because it doesn't read super clearly to me. But the first step is you type the name of the condition, then you type a question mark. So basically we're saying that the value of this property is going to be based on whether this condition is true or false. And that's what this whole question mark syntax means. Then we say first, what is the value going to be if this condition is true? So if it's locked, we want this property to return the locked display text. So that's going to be the first thing we type in after the question mark. So we'll say locked display text. Then we use the colon character just because that's part of this kind of weird syntax for the conditional operator, which you might see listed out as like this. That's the conditional operator, I suppose. Anyhow, so here's our condition. If the condition is true, we do this one. If this condition is false, we set the value based on whatever's on the right-hand side of this colon. So I could rewrite this in a way that's probably much more clear, which would be something like, let me just comment this out. I guess I have to do it in a kind of a more traditional format, like so. So this would be our get accessor. I don't think it was going to let me use the shorthand with the lambda there. Anyway, so if is locked, return locked display text, else return base dot display text. So this is basically the much more lines of code way of expressing this. So here we're using two devices to really reduce the amount of lines of code that we have to write to express the same logic. The first would be we're using this lambda symbol to as a shorter abbreviated syntax for a read-only property, right? This is a read-only property. It only has a get accessor. There's no way to set it. And so since I'm making it a read-only property, I can just use this symbol and then set whatever I want to return when the user types in this property on the right-hand side of it. So that's one way to reduce all the lines of code, just by using this for our read-only property instead of the full-blown get syntax. The second thing is we're using the conditional operator here, which is you use the condition, you write the condition first. So a true or false statement, is this true or false? Then you type this question mark, and if it's true, we set the value equal to the first expression here. And if it's false, we use the one on the right hand side of the colon. So again, it's exactly the same as this. If is locked is true, we use this one. If it's not true, in other words, else, we use that one. Alright, so I'm going to actually comment this one back out and restore this one. If you don't know, these little buttons here allow you to quickly comment and uncomment things out. And I can add a little note that says this is an alternative way to express the same logic as above. Just for a reminder for you all. And again, I'd add, if you're more comfortable with this, if this makes more sense to you, just use it. I mean, there's really no, this isn't necessarily better, it's just shorter. And I would say the more clear one is better if that's more clear to you. But I wanted to use this opportunity to at least introduce this syntax if you've never seen it. Okay, cool. So let's test this. This should work. I'm going to save both my scripts. And now the display text should be overridden, and it should change based on whether or not the door is locked. So in Unity, our door is locked, so I'd expect it to use the this locked display text when I go up and look at it. And you can see it's working right away. When I open it, or try to open it, when I click on it and press the interact button, it does not open. Cool. All right, so let's work on getting the alternative locked sound effect functionality, because the sound effect is our other element of feedback we want to use to help the player understand this is not working out when they click a locked door. All right, so let's stop the game and go back to code. And the way I'm going to do this is by, I think I need a variable, a field, a serialized field for the sound effect I want to use when the door is locked and the sound effect I want to use when the door is not locked. So we can set that up right now. So serialized field. This thing is going to be private and of the type audio clip. Audio clips are sound effects, like wave files, and they are played by audio sources. So remember, the interactive object already has an audio source. So we just need to change the clip that the audio source is using. You can see that again here. Here's our audio source. It has this audio clip built in. We need to have two choices and use the one that corresponds to whether or not the door is locked. All right, so we'll have the locked audio clip, and we'll make one more. So basically just exactly the same as this other one, except this one will be the unlocked, or I guess we can call it the open audio clip. This is a sound effect that will play when the door actually opens. And I should, this has to be, I have to tell it that this is an audio clip. And I should add tooltips to these things so that the designer understands what they are for. So this one will say something like, play this audio clip when the player interacts with a locked door without owning the key. We'll get into keys later, but I'm just thinking ahead here. And this one will be something like, play this audio clip when the player opens the door. All right, so we have a way to plug in the data that we need. We need to execute the logic so that the game uses one or the other based on the status of the door. So I know that in regard to our door, when the door opens or doesn't is all handled in this interact with function here. And so I guess how I'm going to deal with this is I'm going to say, if the door is not open and it's not locked, so this is our case for when the door opens. So that means I want to make sure that I set the audio source. So I want to set the audio clip with a lowercase a. Oops, sorry about that. Audio source with the lowercase a, which I actually don't have access to. So we need to head over to the parent class interactive object, because our door is an interactive object. And I need to make this protected so that my child objects have access to it. So now if I go back over here, I can show you it should show up in IntelliSense. All right, so audio source dot audio clip, or I guess it's just dot clip, equals open audio clip. There we go. And if the door is locked, so we'll say something like this, else we need to change the audio source dot clip to the locked audio clip. There we go. I think that will work. Actually, we want to All right, this is more complicated than I thought. uh, so remember, the thing that's actually playing the audio is this line of code right here. So rather than sort of type this twice, I'm going to reorganize this logic so that I only need to type it once. So basically, I only want to play the sound effect if the door's not already open, just because the way our game works, it only we can only open the doors once. And so let's just delete this for right now. And so basically, if the door's not open, I want to make sure I play this sound effect. It needs to happen. So I'll put an else here. Or, well, no. I'll put it right here. That's fine. Okay, so if the door is not open, we're going to play this sound effect. But I need to change the sound effect if the door is locked. So we'll say if not is locked, and I'm going to need curly brackets because we're going to need to do all of this stuff if the door is not locked. So if the door is not locked, we're going to use the open audio clip. We're going to play the door animation. We're going to change the display text so it doesn't show up anymore. And we're going to let the door know that it's open so we never open it again. And then finally, we're going to play the sound effect. But we're going to play the sound effect regardless of whether it's locked or unlocked. So the sound effect playing is not inside of this if statement. However, I do need to do something different if the door is locked. So that will be covered in this else statement here. So I can put a comment, something like, just in case this is getting confusing. So if it's unlocked, we do all that. If the door is locked, well, we need to change our audio clip. So audio source.clip equals locked audio clip. I did that really fast, so maybe I want to get more in the habit of explaining hotkeys as I do stuff. So I just started typing audio source. I see it on the IntelliSense list. I know the next thing I need is .clip, so I can just hit period right here because that's the next character, and it'll autocomplete and give me the next list of stuff. And so I know I'm looking for clip. So I actually see that that's already selected. So I bet I can just hit the equal sign. Oh, no, that one didn't work. So instead I will just hit tab, or you could hit enter, and that will autocomplete this stuff. So I hit tab, and then I'm going to set it equal to the locked audio clip, and you can use the arrow keys once you see what you're looking for. And then I'm just going to hit semicolon because that's the next character I want. So semicolon will autocomplete this, and type semicolon. So once you practice that stuff, you can get pretty fast at typing code, I guess, in Visual Studio. Alright, so I'm just going to delete this extra blank line, save, and test it out. I guess in order to test it, I need another sound effect. Let's make sure it all... Oh, I have a compile error here. Let's see what's going on. So it's telling me I cannot access this because of its protection level. And if I go back to here, I can already see what I did wrong. If you look at this script, I was thinking, hey, I remember I changed this to protected. That should give me access to it in the other class. Problem is, you see this little asterisk. That means I neglected to save this script. So good habit to always choose save all, or Control Shift S is the hotkey to save all. Alright, so let's go back, and this should clear out as soon as it compiles. It did. Remember the yellow markers here in the console? Those are warnings, and they're good to be aware of, but your game will still run with them. It's the red errors, like right now I have 0. The red errors are the things that you need to be fixing right away. And so maybe at the end of this video series we can spend a minute looking at all these warnings, but I just want to keep moving forward for now. The important thing is to remember warnings, not so big a deal necessarily. Errors, the red ones that look like stop signs, you need to address immediately. Okay, anyway, I see now we have a locked audio clip and an open audio clip. Remember, if I mouse over this, it'll give me my tooltip. So I already have one for when the door opens. I'm just going to drag this clip into there. Well, that doesn't really work, so I'll just click that and choose. It's called gate latch. Okay, that's the one that's right here. But I need something for when the door is locked. I think I have a sound effect here. Yeah, here we go, locked door sound. So go ahead and download this guy, or find your own sound effect you want to use for locked door, and we will add that to our project into this sound effects directory. Let me find mine real quick. There we go. And now we just need to plug in the sounds. So I've already got the open sound plugged in. Let's just plug in the locked door sound. And let me just play the sound effect and make sure it's working real quick. Yeah, so that's what I hope to hear. Let's give it a shot. Seems to be working. Now I wonder what will happen. I'm just going to hit escape so I can do stuff while the game's still running. Let's go ahead and change the door so that it's not locked anymore, just for fun. And I'll go click back in my game window so I can see the display text says door. And then I've got my open sound effects. So basically, the functionality can be updated dynamically. My locked and unlocked status can change while the game's running. I just need to, create a way for the game to change that while it's running without me having to hit escape and check a box. See, well, I won't be able to relock it just because our doors can only be opened once, but it does work if we start locked. Cool. All right, well, this is a pretty good chunk of progress, so I would recommend that we save and maybe make some commits and push. And I guess for a change of pace, I can leave this video a little shorter than normal, and then in the next video I'll go over how to add an inventory framework for the player, and how to add a key to our locked door so you can unlock the door without having to hit escape and check a box in Unity. All right, cool. See you next time.